Right, hello everybody again. We're going to carry on with James on the chart page, and you may recall we've reached chapter 24. They've managed to fight off the sharks. They are floating through the air, suspended on silken threads from a whole flock of seagulls. They've just frightened the captain of a huge ship and all his crew, who think he's gone completely potty because he was looking through his telescope and he was saying he could see a small boy and lots of huge animals on top of a flying peach. So they think he's gone completely bonkers. But we know it's kind of true, don't we? Because we are following the story. So, chapter 24, let's see, is that the end of the adventures or is there more to come? Well, we can see, look, we've still got a fair way to go in the book. So it clearly isn't the end of the adventures. Up on the peach itself, everyone was still happy and excited. I wonder where we'll finish this time, the earthworm said, which is about as excitable as the earthworm gets, really, isn't it? Who cares, they answered. Seagulls always go back to the land sooner or later, because that is true. They may fly across the ocean and across the sea, but they still need to get back to land because that's where they feed and that's where they nest and so on. Up and up they went, high above the highest clouds, the peach swaying gently from side to side as it floated along. Wouldn't this be the perfect time for a little music? The ladybird asked. How about it, old grasshopper? With pleasure, dear lady, the old green grasshopper answered, bowing from the waist. Oh, hooray! He's going to play for us, they cried, and immediately the whole company sat themselves down in a circle around the old green musician. And the concert began because he's a very good player. And from the moment the first note was struck, the audience became completely spellbound. As for James, never had he heard such beautiful music in all his life. In the garden at home on summer evenings, he had listened many times to the sound of grasshoppers chirping in the grass, and always liked the noise that they made. This is a different kind of noise altogether. Sometimes you get grasshoppers in the garden, and you can hear the little noises, grasshoppers and crickets, and you can hear the little noises they make. Particularly if you've got some long grass, they're happier in long grass. This is a different kind of noise altogether. This was real music, chords, harmonies, tunes. And what a wonderful instrument the old green grasshopper was playing upon. It was like a violin. It was almost exactly as though he were playing upon a violin. The bow of the violin, the bit that moved, and when we do this, it goes backwards and forwards. The bow of the violin was his back leg. The strings of the violin, the part that made the sound, was on the edge of his wing. So he's using his leg and rubbing it against his wing. He was using only the top of his back leg, and he was stroking this up and down against the edge of his wing with incredible skill, sometimes slowly, sometimes fast, but always with the same easy flowing action. It was exactly the way a clever violinist would have used his bow, and the music came pouring out and filled the whole blue sky around them with magic melodies. When the first part was finished, everyone clapped madly, and Miss Spider stood up and shouted, Bravo! Encore! Give us some more! Did you like that, James? The old green grasshopper asked, smiling at the small boy. Oh, I loved it, James answered. It was beautiful. It was as though you had a real violin in your hands. A real violin? The old green grasshopper cried. Good heavens, I like that, my dear boy. I am a real violin. It is a part of my own body. But do all grasshoppers play their music on violins the same way as you do? James asked him. No, he answered, not at all. If you want to know, I happen to be a short-horned grasshopper. I have two short feelers coming out of my head. Can you see them? There they are. They are quite short, aren't they? Up here, so. That's why they call me a shorthorn, and we shorthorns are the only ones who play our music in the violin style, using a bow. My long-horned relatives, the ones who have long, curvy feelers coming out of their heads, make their music simply by rubbing the edges of their two top wings together. They are not violinists, they are wing rubbers, and a rather inferior noise those wing rubbers produce too, if I may say so. It sounds more like a banjo than a fiddle. I think he's being a bit snobby, isn't he? I think he thinks his music is better than their music. I also think if you go and look online, you can find grasshoppers and you can find crickets, both of which we get in the garden sometimes, and they are different. And I think one has long feelers coming up at the top of his head and the other has short ones. But you could look that up, couldn't you? Well, how fascinating this all is, cried James, and to think that up to until now I never even wondered how a grasshopper made his sounds. My dear young fellow, the old green grasshopper said gently, there are a whole lot of things in this world of ours you haven't even started wondering about yet. Where, for example, do you think that I keep my ears? Well, that's not a question you get asked every day, is it? Your ears? Why, in your head, of course. Everyone burst out laughing. You mean you don't even know that? Cried the centipede. Try again, said the old green grasshopper, smiling at James. Well, you can't possibly keep them anywhere else, because of course James has got his ears probably the same place as you've got yours. One there and one there. I assume you've got your ears there, have you? Well, I give up. Where do you keep them? Oh, right here, the old green grasshopper said, one on each side of my tummy. It's not true. Of course it's true. What's so peculiar about that? You ought to see where my cousins, the crickets, keep theirs. Where do they keep them? Well, in their legs. One in each front leg, just below the knee. You mean you didn't know that either? The centipede said scornfully. You're joking, James said. Nobody could possibly have his ears in his legs. Why not? Well, because it's ridiculous, that's why. You know what I think is ridiculous, the centipede said, grinning away as usual. I don't mean to be rude, but I think it's ridiculous to have ears on the side of one's head. It certainly looks ridiculous. You ought to take a peek in the mirror some day and see for yourself. Pest, cried the earthworm. Why must you always be so rude and rambunctious to everyone? You ought to apologise to James at once. So when you're looking online to find out the difference between crickets and grasshoppers, maybe you could find out where they keep their ears. Is the old green grasshopper telling the truth? Anyway, chapter 25. James didn't want the earthworm and the centipede to get into yet another argument, because they always are. So he said quickly to the earthworm, Tell me, do you play any kind of music? No, but I do other things, some of which are really quite extraordinary, the earthworm said, brightening. Well, such as what? Said James. Well, the earthworm said, next time you stand in a field or in a garden and look around you, then just remember this. Every grain of soil upon the surface of the land, every tiny little bit of soil that you can see has actually passed through the body of an earthworm in the last few years. Isn't that wonderful? Well, it's not possible, said James. My dear boy, it is a fact. You mean you actually swallow soil? Like mad, the earthworm said proudly. In one end and out the other. But what's the point? What do you mean, what's the point? Why do you do it? Oh, we do it for the farmers. It makes the soil nice and light and crumbly, so things will grow well in it. If you really want to know, the farmers couldn't do without us. We are essential, we are vital, so it is only natural that the farmer should love us. He loves us even more, I believe, than he loves the ladybird. And it is true, if you want your garden to be really healthy, then you need lots of goodness in the soil, because that then encourages lots of earthworms. And they do, they work their way through and they dig their way through. And all things like when leaves die, they end up on top of the soil, they get gradually pulled down underneath by worms. "The ladybird," said James, turning to look at her. "Do they love you too?" "Oh, I'm told they do," the ladybird answered modestly, blushing all over. "In fact, I understand in some places the farmers love us so much they go out and buy live ladybirds by the sackful and take them home and set them free in their fields. They're very pleased when they have lots of ladybirds in their fields." "But why?" asked James. "Because we gobble up all the nasty little insects that are gobbling up all the farmers' crops. It helps enormously, and we don't charge a penny for our services." "Well, I think you're wonderful," James told her, "because I think the ladybird is probably one of his favourites, because she's a bit like a mum to him, isn't she?" "Can I ask you one special question?" "Please do." "Well, is it really true that I can tell how old a ladybird is by counting her spots?" "Oh, no, that's just a children's story," the ladybird said. "We never change our spots. Some of us, of course, are born with more spots than others, but we never change them. The number of spots a ladybird has is simply a way of showing which branch of the family she belongs to. I, for example, as you can see for yourself, am a 9-spotted ladybird. I'm very lucky. It's a fine thing to be." "It is indeed," said James, gazing at the beautiful scarlet shell with the 9 black spots on it. "On the other hand," the ladybird went on, "some of my less fortunate relatives have no more than 2 spots altogether on their shells. Can you imagine that? They're called 2-spotted ladybirds, and very common and ill-mannered they are too, I regret to say. And then, of course, you have the 5-spotted ladybirds as well. They're much nicer than the 2-spotted ones, although I myself find them a bit saucy. They're a bit cheeky for my taste." "But are they all loved?" said James. "Oh, yes," the ladybird answered quietly. "They're all of them loved. And it is true, sometimes we get all sorts of little bugs, like when we get the little green flies on our roses. You don't get roses with lots of green fly if you've got lots of ladybirds." "Well, it seems that almost everyone round here is loved," said James. "How nice this is." "Not me," cried the centipede happily. "I am a pest, and I'm proud of it. Oh, I am such a shocking, dreadful pest." "Hear, hear," the earthworm said. "But what about you, Miss Spider?" asked James. "Aren't you also much loved in the world?" "Alas, no," Miss Spider answered, sighing long and loud. "I am not loved at all, and yet I do nothing but good all day long. I catch flies and mosquitoes in my webs. I am a decent person." "Well, I know you are," said James. "It is very unfair the way we spiders are treated, Miss Spider. Why, only last week your own horrible Aunt Sponge flushed my poor dear father down the plug hole in the bathroom." "Oh, how awful!" cried James. "I watched the whole thing from a corner up in the ceiling," Miss Spider murmured. "It was ghastly. We never saw him again." And a large tear rolled down her cheek and fell with a splash on the floor. "But is it not very unlucky to kill a spider?" James inquired, looking round at the others. "I don't think you should ever kill spiders. There's never a need. In this country, spiders don't do any harm. They hardly bite at all. And all they're trying to do is get rid of flies and things like that. And if you don't want a spider in your room, you can just pick it up in your hands. Or what I do is I put a glass over it and then a piece of paper underneath and the spider's in the glass. And then I take it outside and put it out in the garden, because Mrs. Barton doesn't like spiders, I have to say. But there's no reason not to. So it's an important thing to start when you're young. Get to know spiders, and then let spiders be your friends. And certainly there's never a need to wash them down the plug hole." "Of course it's unlucky to kill a spider," shouted the centipede. "It's about the unluckiest thing anyone can do. Look what happened to Aunt Sponge after she did that. Bump! We all felt it, didn't we, as the peach went over? Oh, what a lovely bump that must have been for you, Miss Spider." "It was very satisfactory," Miss Spider answered. "Will you sing us a song about it, please?" And so the centipede did. Oh, I'm not sure I like centipede songs. They're too long and complicated. "Aunt Sponge was terrifically fat, and tremendously flabby at that. Her tummy and waist were as soggy as paste. It was worse on the place where she sat. So she said, I must make myself flat. I must make myself sleek as a cat. I should do without dinner to make myself thinner. But along came the peach, oh, the beautiful peach, and made her far thinner than that." "That was very nice," Miss Spider said. "Now sing one about Aunt Spiker." "Oh, with pleasure," the centipede answered, grinning. Aunt Spiker was thin as a wire, and dry as a bone, only drier. She was so long and thin, if you carried her in, you could use her for poking the fire. I must do something quickly, she frowned. I want fat, I want pound upon pound. I must eat lots and lots of marshmallow and chocks, till I start bulging out all around. Ah, yes, she announced, I have sworn that I'll alter my figure by dawn. Cried the peach with a snigger, I'll alter your figure, and ironed her out on the lawn. Everybody clapped and called out for more songs from the centipede, who had once launched into his favourite song of all. Once upon a time, when pigs were swine, and monkeys chewed tobacco, and hens took snuff to make themselves tough, and the ducks said quack, quack, quacko, and porcupines drank fiery wines, and goats ate tapioca, and old Mother Hubbard got stuck in the Look out, centipede! Cried James. Look out! Well, what's going to happen? You will have to come back next time and find out. Be happy. Talk to you soon.